This is Boomer Life Lessons and Stories, and I believe this is episode 16. Thank you so much for being on the journey with us. It's been fun. It's been interesting. I've learned a lot of things so far, and hopefully this has been beneficial to you as well. One of the things I'd like to do before we go to our particular topic that we're going to be discussing today, I would like to thank those of you that have subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. That will help me tremendously with the YouTube algorithm, and it will allow me to continue doing these videos going forward. Also, to those of you that have left comments, they've been very much appreciated, and there's been some very kind words, and I do thank you for that. If I say something that is helpful to you, please also leave comments down in this episode and future episodes. Again, thanks to all for being on this journey with me, and please know you are always on my mind. Okay. Well, what is the topic today that we're going to talk about? It's, again, from my past. It's one of those life lessons that I learned by observing others. Now, that's an interesting point. It's not always about what happens to you that allows you to learn, how to do the right thing, how to react and act in certain situations. We can learn lots of good lessons simply by observing the actions of others. And, it's kind of like if you give me your lessons learned and I take my lessons learned and add them together, I'm going to be a lot better off going forward. So I would like to think of this as me sharing a story with you that happened to another individual that I was kind of on the sidelines observing as it happened, perhaps, and after the fact, listen to some of the results and just chatting with these individuals that were involved. But in any case, the title of this episode is From Hero to Zero in 24 hours. 24 hours, you can go from being the best of the best, the hero, acting heroically, down to somebody that really is creating problems and they need to be fixed, and they're adding significant amounts of negative value. You'd think that would be hard to do, but it's not. People, through their inactions and their tendency not to think things through, create problems. Now, let me say this about business situations and even in life situations. Sometimes we cannot see the future too clearly because of the fog of complexity. Yes, you've heard of the fog of war? Well, there's this thing called the fog of complexity as we navigate through life, and we're looking to do things in our personal life, and we're looking to do things in our business life. The fog of complexity. We can kind of see, but there's fog out there and we don't see clearly. Well, most of the time, what results is some things that are not optimal, and perhaps some things that are not good for the business or for your personal life. But what we always tend to do, and this is kind of the medicine that we need to take always to prevent this syndrome of falling prey to the fog of complexity, we always need to practice good critical thinking, right? We need to gather the facts, understand what we need to do, look for things that could prevent us from doing it, create plans that will mitigate those sorts of things, and then execute to the plan to achieve. But it's oftentimes the surprises that get you. You think you've done something heroic, but actually what you've done is jeopardized everybody around you. I don't want to be that person. Do you? You're working on the job, whether you're an engineer or an accountant or a doctor or a researcher or whatever the case may be, whether it's in academia or it's in corporate America. You don't want to be that person that creates a situation that jeopardizes everybody. That means you're jeopardizing everybody's net well-being that's around you, and perhaps, as this story goes, everybody in the company. So let's lay out what happened. Let me give you the situation. So I don't know if any of you have been exposed to contracts doing business with the government and even other companies, but oftentimes you have delivery dates. You have interim deliveries where you must deliver some of the systems or the products that you're developing, and then the final system that you deliver, right? So there's interim deliveries all the way up to the end of the contract where you make your final delivery. And guess what? You know what happens at delivery? Something good happens. The company gets paid. And that's a good thing, because if the company gets paid, you get paid, right? So there's a reason why we make plans, we create plans, we execute the plans, and we deliver the products that we've developed to our customers at high quality with great efficiency and great functions. But it's not always roses as we go about forcing things to happen. So the situation was that this team was entering into a weekend worth of work. They were working overtime because they had a major delivery that was coming up on Monday. So the truck had to leave the dock, the company's dock, on Monday in order to be at the customer's dock by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, in contracting, there oftentimes is a late delivery penalty. And late delivery penalties is what the customer charges or sanctions you on for being late and not living up to the commitment of the delivery. And these late delivery penalties can be tens of thousands of dollars or more. So what happens if you incur a late penalty? Well, the companies stand up programs and they invest money in these programs to produce products and services. And then they expect to get a stream of money coming back into them in the form of revenue. And after they subtract all the cost of providing the product, developing and delivering the product, what's left over is profit. And then they turn profit into research and development programs and plant expansions and other things, right? So all of that's goodness. But what happens is, if you incur a situation where you have a late penalty, it reduces profitability. And if it's severe enough, the company can make no profit on that program. And oh, by the way, if it's a contract with the government and it's severe enough, the situation is severe enough, the government could decide, we're going to suspend all contracts with the company. Now, this particular situation happened in the 1980s. And at that time, the company I was working for, perhaps 95 to 98% of all the business that that company was doing was with the government. There was a small sliver of projects that were with commercial customers. So just because I said it was with the government doesn't mean it's the same government customer. The government has all sorts of customers. There's the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, there's housing and human development and things like that, right? Urban development, I should say. So there's lots of customers within the government. So if you encounter a situation where the government decides to suspend your business, the company can quickly get into a situation that will go bankrupt if 95 to 98% of your business is with the company. And if that situation does occur, it's not just one person that maybe is put on probation or loses their job. It's everyone. So we're not talking about something that's trivial, right? We're not talking about something that's trivial. So this project team had 20 units to deliver. We're talking major system, hardware and software. The hardware has to work pristinely with the software, right? And what happens is, as you develop it, you test it, you prove it out, and then you stand up your infrastructure to produce it on a recurring basis. Well, we're in the front end part of the development, and we're transitioning into production. And so the first initial deliveries were the low rate initial production of the units, so to speak, LRIP, right? So these individuals and my friend, my colleague, he was the lead, the team lead. They had to work over the weekend to ensure that they got the 20 ready to be delivered, because the project was a little late in some of the activity, and it pushed it right up to the point of delivery, meaning the following Monday. So he gets his team together, and they're working hard, and they're doing their assembly, and they're doing their tests, and they get 16 of them done without a problem. And then they encounter 3 or 4 failures. Actually, it was 4 failures at the final assembly and test just before they're going to pack them up and get ready to ship. And so they were astounded. Why are these failures happening? This is the fog of complexity. The higher the complexity of the activities, you know, we would like to think that we know everything, but if you think you know everything, you're fooling yourself, right? We make the best plans with the best information that we have, and then we try to execute to that plan involving all that needs to be involved, meaning people and assets and resources. So these failures were a stunner to them. And when they began to look and evaluate what the problem was, they found one component that had failed, and that was the failure mode, or the reason for the failure mode, in these 4 units. So they thought, okay, we need to understand why this item failed. Was it something we did, or is it something called infant mortality? Now, infant mortality is something, and I know it's a kind of a bad sounding thing, but it is a phrase or term that is used when you buy piece parts from other companies, right? You're buying, you know, assemblies and sub-assemblies and actual, say, resistors, capacitors, and whatever you need to build your circuit boards, etc. So your expectation is that the parts that are being delivered from these OEMs, original engineering manufacturers, are superb, and all of them are going to work. I mean, and generally that is the case. These guys are that good. But that wasn't the case here. So when they began to evaluate it, they did find out that it wasn't the OEMs that was the problem. What they found was that one of the ways they were assembling it and doing some interim tests caused these components to fail. Now, there was 4 units, 4 systems, hardware, software systems, that had a failure, and it was caused by this component. And that failure mode was due to how they were assembling, manufacturing, and testing it. And it just so happened that things rolled around. The other 16 weren't affected, but these 4 were. And it was Sunday afternoon. They were getting close to needing to pack things up and get it ready to be shipped out the next morning, which would be Monday. Remember, this product had to leave the dock by 6 a.m. in order to be at the customer's dock before the late delivery penalty kicked in that afternoon. So my friend, he went around calling. He called the project manager. For some reason, couldn't get a hold of him. He called the quality engineering manager. The quality engineer couldn't get a hold of them. And so he said, okay, I know how to fix this problem. We have solved what it was that was causing this component to fail. So now all we have to do is just get the parts and repair it. He went looking for the parts on the project. There was none. They had consumed, during development, all the developmental spares. That's what they're called, developmental spares. So there was no parts left that he could exchange the bad parts with new parts and then test them and then get them ready, the system to get them ready to be delivered. So, you know, this guy was somebody called, he was very, very good at what he did. Most projects were asking for him. That's how good, you know, if you're good, very good at what you do, you don't have to worry about a job, because all the program managers and all those people in positions of authority know your reputation, and they want you on their team. They want the A team on their program, right? So he was thinking to himself, and this guy was innovative. And then he thought, wow, okay, I know where these parts are. They're not on our project, but there's a similar project over here paid for with a different contract with a different part of the government, right? These parts were paid for on a different part of the government, different contract, different customer. I'll just go and get those parts. I'll fill out the paperwork, transfer the parts over to this project, and then we'll be good. We'll repair our units and we'll be ready to ship. Well, in order to transfer the parts, he had to get the other program management's permission, the production management. He had to get quality to sign off on it. And when he began to call people to actually sign off and make the transfer and do what was proper, because the project he was on was going to have to pay for those parts to the other program, and the other program would have to reduce their inventory, and all would be great. But remember, these other parts were paid for by different money on a different contract with a different customer. He couldn't find anybody. Nobody was answering the phone. Now, I know you're going to say that wasn't his problem. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So he thought to himself, I need those parts. It's better to get forgiveness than permission and let this result in a penalty clause for us. So what he did is he went over to the other program, and all those parts are under lock inventory. Every inventory for each program is locked up, has fences and cages around it, and nobody without proper permission or access can get in and get those parts. So what he did was he climbed the fence. He was not going to let this little thing called proper paperwork and transaction, which is per company policy and procedure. He wasn't going to let that stand in the way of him meeting his shipment. So he wanted to be the hero. He wanted to get forgiveness afterwards, right? Because he didn't want to fail. He didn't want the team to fail. So he got the parts. He went and repaired the modules, and he packed them up with his team, turned it over to shipping and receiving. They got them ready, and the truck came in the next morning. They loaded them up, and off the truck went, right? Everything was fine. But you see, every Monday morning, there was a stand-up meeting at 6 o'clock. Now, that's how critical some programs get. If you encounter lots of problems, program management and engineering management will stand up daily stand-up meetings or weekly stand-up meetings, where the idea is you stand around in a circle and you talk about what's going on, and then you get actual help during that stand-up meeting, and you go for the rest of the day, and you're able to do what you need to do. So the program manager was there, and the program director was there at the stand-up meeting. So they start down the list with the program team, the engineering team, and they said, well, did we make shipment? Oh, yes, sir. We made shipment. Truck went out this morning at 6 o'clock. It's on the road. We'll be there in plenty of time at the customer's dock, and we'll meet the commitment. We'll not get any late delivery penalties. He goes, well, is there any problem I need to know about that you might have encountered? Now, and see, for those of you that are aspiring to be good managers or be a manager in your career, you always ask these open-ended questions. You may even say something like, okay, well, tell me what I don't know already. And that puts the team on the spot, because now they feel an obligation and a responsibility that some things that they were dealing with and struggling with internal, they have to bring it forward and share it with management. And the only reason why management does that is to mitigate risk. We want to be successful, but we want to do so and manage the risk. Because what is a risk? What's the definition of risk? And I'm going to be doing another talk about risk and opportunity a little later, a later episode. Risk is anything that could go wrong that would negatively impact your three baselines on a project: cost, schedule, and technical, right? So when that question was asked, my friend, who was a fast tracker, a hero, because he's always able to get things done, and he was moving up fairly quickly in the organization, being promoted every year or two or three. So he said, yes, we had a problem. We had 4 units fail, but we evaluated it on Sunday. We realized where the failure mode was, what was causing the parts to fail, and we repaired them. And so the director of engineering and the director of program said, well, we have enough parts for it. Do you see how this management crew works? They're going to drill down to make sure there's nothing hidden there. That's the mark of a good manager. The mark of a good manager is to knock down all barriers and obstacles to the team. That's the mark of a good manager. But it's also to protect the company. Well, yes, sir, we had a problem. We didn't have any of those parts on the program. Really? Well, where did you get the parts? Well, program B over here had the parts. They use it in a similar type of application in their product. Well, okay, did you get the paperwork filled out and signed off by their production manager in quality engineering, quality assurance? No. No, why not? Well, we called and we couldn't get a hold of anybody. We called them and we called some of our superiors, and we couldn't get a hold of them. They weren't answering the phone. I don't know where they were. So we thought, well, we'll just do the paperwork after the fact and get it caught up when everybody's here in plant on Monday. And then the director just, you did what? You shipped product to our customer with parts that we did not pay for, with parts that was bought with another customer's money? That's commingling. That is against company policy and procedure. And oh, by the way, did you know that is illegal in government contracting? Do you know what the consequences of that is? And my friend said, no, sir, I don't. The government could debar us from doing business with them because we did something that was not legal. Let me tell you something. We're going to have to get that paperwork filled out right now. I'm going to have to go talk to the customer and let them know what happened. And we better hope that they will not debar us for this activity. Because if we lose all our business, it's not just going to be this project that's hurting. Everybody's going to be out of a job. My friend went from a hero to a zero. He said, we're going to have a talk after we get clear of this. And there's going to be some consequences for this. My friend went from hero to zero in 24 hours. Don't be that person. Now, you may say in his defense, well, he tried. Yes, he tried. But the decision would be, don't ship. If we can't get a hold of anybody to make the proper transfer of the paperwork, we're not shipping. Because I will tell you this, $10,000 late penalty is cheap compared to shutting the company down and losing all that business and everybody. And there was, at the time, at that particular plant, there was about 13,000 people working at that plant, everybody losing their job. So was he right? No. He didn't follow company policy and procedure. Now, for those of you that are getting ready to go into your career, graduate and go into your career, one of the things you have to understand is company policy and procedure inside the company is like the law. You must follow it. If you want to deviate from the company policy and procedure, you must get a waiver, okay? And it must be signed off and approved by higher ups. That's just to protect it. But in this particular case, he did not. He thought he was going to be the hero, but he became the zero. So now let's kind of bubble up to the 50,000 foot level and think about this. How does that apply to us? Well, you've heard me talk about unintended consequences. You may have a goal out there and you achieve the goal, but some of the side things happen are unintended consequences. Or you may not achieve the goal, something else may happen that is not good. Unintended consequences. Well, the unintended consequences is that the company could have been shut down. Now, let me just quickly interject. The rest of the story was that the program manager went and got with his customer, and the customer said, well, there's going to be some consequences, but you need to get with your employee and get that fixed. We'll accept the paperwork. We'll deal with the other part of the government, the other customer, and everything should be fine. But you understand there's going to be a consequence, right? But it wasn't shutting down the entire company and canceling all the contracts. So when we think about our personal life and we think about goals, there's something out there that we must do. And no matter what, we're going to achieve it. The danger here is the no matter what. Because when you begin to look at the end, let me back up and say it again. When you begin to look at it and you believe the end justifies the means, you're sorely mistaken. You're sorely mistaken. You've got to be careful with that type of ethics. The end does not necessarily justify the means, and most often it opens you up to a slippery slope that will cause bad things to happen that will not just be with you, but they will ripple out to everyone around you, and most importantly, too, they will ripple through time into your future. So the necessity here is that if there's something that you absolutely want to happen and you're going to become the hero, don't fall prey to letting the end justify what you're trying to do without ethics to achieve it. That is a slippery slope, and you will be held accountable to that. This individual, over time, through the years, did recover in his reputation and his career. He went on to have a good career with the company. But the reputation is what suffered for a couple of years. Now, why is that? Well, your reputation on the job and even in your personal life is your brand. Companies market their products and they try to create brand awareness. Well, your reputation is your brand awareness. And I've often asked my students in business and actually in classes I teach here at UTA, I've asked them, I said, what precedes you to any place that you're going to, whether it's a meeting or some other destination? And oftentimes they will think deeply and longly about it. Sometimes they'll get it right. Sometimes they'll offer up other answers. But the correct answer is the one thing that precedes you to any place that you're going is your reputation. The downside is if you have a bad reputation in the business, and we may have 60 programs going on, and all 60 program managers don't want you on their team because of your reputation. You're not adding value, but adding negative value. Then where else is there to go? Because the company is not a football team where they have reserves sitting on the bench. Every person in the engineering organization or the accounting organization or program management or wherever, everybody has a job to do. And a business is like a well-oiled machine working efficiently to produce the products and services that are of benefit to their customers. So I think kind of wrapping all this up is beware of this idea that you can go from hero to zero in a matter of 24 hours or within an hour or within a split second. Something that you say, perhaps trying to be funny but not well thought out, could disrupt an entire meeting and you not achieve the goals or the end result that you would like to happen. Think critically, think deeply, and you will do well in everything that you do. Create a plan, work hard at working hard to make that plan happen, and be flexible when things disrupt your plan. Just modify the plan and move on, and you will be successful. And with that, guys and gals, I think I am done. Please know you're always on my mind. I think that we're on this journey together, and if I've said something that is helpful to you, certainly like, share, and subscribe. If you share with others and we get other people to subscribe, that will help us manage the YouTube algorithm, and we can continue doing this for you. With that, all the best, and I will see you in some future episode. Take care.